Hi, it's Laurie at Positive Thanks Living, and today it's all about masterboards. It's about collaging book pages and what you can do on top of the masterboard once it's done. I've also stamped some spring words because that's going to be my 100 days project, spring words, and I'm going to incorporate it all into these book page masterboards. Now these are different tones of beige and cream and white and a little darker, and they're music and words, and on top of them, some of them I put some acrylic paint, some of them I spritzed things. Now these are the first ones that I decorated, and I'm using these snap together letters that then you put in ink and you stamp on paper to make words. But I'm also practicing my lettering. I'm not ready to show you that yet. Have you ever collaged book pieces? Well, I've been watching a lot of collage artists, and my first foray into collaging, at least masterboards, is just going to be plain rectangles of book page. What I did was I gathered together all the pages that are falling out of the books, all the pages that are crumbly or no one's going to want to read them because they are already out of a book. And I've made them into different lengths or strips or rectangles. And I'm gluing them with, just as you see, plain glue stick onto scrap paper. I'm going to show you very quickly to give you an idea, but I have a feeling you already know how to do this. This is just so you understand where I'm coming from. That I'm gluing them onto is a discarded copy paper. My husband printed something on it, or maybe I printed something on it. But anyhow, it was not to be used anymore, and I thought, okay, I'll use it as my base. The nice part about gluing the strips of paper on top, or both sides, is that the three layers become almost like cardstock. Not quite, but definitely heavy enough that they have some weight to them and some stiffness, so that when you want to decorate them, you can. So sometimes your glue stick comes to the end, and it irritates me that there is some glue left in there. So I'm just showing you what I do. It's finicky, and your fingers get all yucky, but I feel so much better throwing that silly glue stick away if I've used up every bit of the glue. I dig into it with a palette knife and scoop out what's left, what won't come out, because it's the way it's anchored into the glue stick. So, I don't know, have you ever done anything like that? For some reason, it just gives me a sense of satisfaction, as though I've gotten my money's worth out of this glue stick. So on to a new glue stick, one that's full. And I'm still gluing down things, and I'm looking for the different color of what would be a plain paper. None of them have pictures, and none of them are. What I'm looking for is a juxtaposition between large script, small script, music paper that is older tinged and newer tinged, and I tried to find numbers. I tried to find all kinds of different script so that the masterboards, these first ones anyhow that I'm making, will have they'll look different, but they'll all be cohesive. I don't know whether you realize or not, but collage is a word from the French, and it means to glue. Kind of makes sense, right? Yeah. So once they're all glued onto the both sides of whatever I've chosen to put in the middle, then you have the choice of adding some color, adding something interesting. I trim them and cut them apart, and then here's what I've done. I did some acrylic paint swiping like that. Yep, just on one side. And then added other things. I'm going to show you how I did that. They have to be at least 10 years old, these acrylic paints, but they work great. So one of them I did white and the two blues. The other one I did just blue and white. And you can see this sort of texture on top. You can see the edge of it to the right. It's embossed, but I'll show you some of that later. I'm choosing a different color palette to try this time, and it's not comfortable for me at all. I finally settle with white and this yellow that's on the orange side. And I have to say, I was not in love with it when I was done. I was this close to just tossing it away, but I didn't. I persevered. And you'll see as this video goes by how I handle it. Now the lids are very stubborn because they're old. So I use a what do you call that? A wrench? I don't know. Yeah, to take the lid off. That worked really well. There's a hint if you have a problem taking the lid off. These were originally from Illustrated Faith. I was gifted them, and I'm very thankful for them. 3 out of the colors are my favorite, those blues and white. But I'm putting on this orange, this yellow orange. There's a more orange that I never did use. When I was researching collaging, I understood that often what people do once they have their masterboard done is then they add color, and then they add something over top of the color to sort of smooth out the edges of where the papers come together. So that's what I'm attempting with this paint, with the white and to make the whole thing cohesive in color. And I don't know, maybe I'm not successful, but it's an interesting exploration. What do you put on top of your masterboards the first time you make them? Or do you cut them up right away and then decorate them each differently? I suppose that could be a strategy too. I tried to be as taking care of time, making sure the time went well. So I want to thank you for joining me here. Thank you and welcome to all the new subscribers. It's lovely to be together. This is a wonderful community. Leave a comment below if you make masterboards or if you're thinking about doing this sort of thing. My next exploration is going to be in collaging. So one of the masterboards that I made, I did that technique, scraping paint on it. And the second one, I'm going to use spray. This particular was evergreen bough. I had a re-inker and I put it with some water and then spritzed it on. And the other one that I made, that you watched me make just earlier, I am going to spritz with pink. So I really liked the masterboard I made, this one here, that goes diagonally. I think that is going to be great. I'm not decorating it this time in this video. That'll be next week when, I'll show you what I'm doing next week. That will be interesting. I'm looking forward to it on top of their masterboard. But this week, it's all about adding color and other embellishments. Starting with the color, whether it's spraying it or it's with the ink or the paint, the acrylic paint that is pushed alongside it. So this is the stamp with Versamark, which is like a gluey ink that I did with that. Now this one I'm going to use a Harlequin pattern on there. And you first use the ink that's sticky, and then you cover it with embossing powder, and then you heat it, and then it becomes a shiny surface on top of what you've already done. I'm going to show you two ways. One was I put the stamp down on top of the masterboard, and you'll see that I am pressing very firmly. I lift it up, and then I put the white embossing powder over top and use the heat gun. Hopefully I've decreased the noise enough that the sound of the heat gun won't bother you. But the amount of powder, or maybe the amount of ink that went on there, wasn't as much as what I was hoping. So I use the heat gun to heat it up, and you can see it's starting to appear glossy, the embossing ink. And it is, you can notice it, it's there, but it's not very obvious. There we go. It's not obvious. And again, the yellow-orange color was not impressing me. I want to cover it up with white of something. So this is the second way that I tried putting the Versa ink on top, the sticky ink that the powder will stick to. I left the block on the table, and I put the paper on top of the block. And then I used one of those acrylic blocks when you're stamping individual stamps, and a really heavy push of a stamping, I don't know what it is, a knob. I was determined to get every bit of that sticky ink onto the page. Surprise, I was successful. It was much better. More of the powder, more of the ink was there, so more of the powder stuck. And then I did that for the other three. It ended up 3 parts of that masterboard. And because I was intending to cut it in 4 anyhow, no, you and I would never have noticed if you hadn't watched me the first time. See how more of the glossy embossing powder shows up? Yeah. So that's the way it worked for me. I suppose if you wanted a less obvious embossing background, do it the other way. But I was trying to cover up that orange-yellow color. And everything that I did afterward was all to that end. There we go. We have that. And I'm pointing out where it's less obvious and more obvious. Now on to decorating. I pulled out some of those die cuts, and after cutting them apart, I added more embossing, I added more stamping, some in the purple, because if you look at a color wheel, purple is opposite yellow. So I thought, okay, let's try purple. And I wasn't that thrilled with it, but then I tried the blue-green, and yes, that is the color that I like. So this is a die cut that was 2 book pages glued together, and then I used acrylic gold paint and cut it out. And I don't want to use the gold anymore, so I thought, let's see what happens if I tried to emboss some white over it. Would it work? How well would it work? And I wasn't really worried about how smooth it would be, because I was thinking a garden, a kind of rusty window. It wouldn't bother me if it didn't go real smoothly. And it didn't go real smoothly. But it worked really well. I liked the way it looked. And I have these spring words that I had stamped, and I'm going to put them on there along with some other bits and pieces that are just sort of hanging around my craft room in boxes. And there is a word to add The window is glued on. I needed more glue than normal with the amount of ink and embossing, heat embossing that was there. But I add something later under the word bloom. Now, this card I had done some ink embossing with a stencil, and it was okay, but I thought it needed something a little more, and that's where this flower is. It's actually, the flower is put onto a piece of freezer paper from a napkin. The flower is a napkin from a napkin. And I thought that would look nice there. And another word. You'll have to wait to see the end. I went back and did a lot more, so possibly that wasn't the word that ended up on the card. But you go from just a piece of scrap paper, covered it with text or music paper, and then you put some color on it, and then you add all kinds of things, layers and layers and layers. And to me, that's what collaging is. Just keep adding the layer until you're only one layer away from joy, right? So that has, again, stencil and a die cut that I embossed white. It was gold. And there's another word, and there's 4 of them. Now I'm going to show you something else I've been doing. Similar concept, the background. This is for the Non-Stop Papercraft. She is doing an Altered Index 2025, and the prompt was shattered. So I took a magazine picture and just cut it in. This is how I made the background. Now in this, it wasn't collaging, it was just using the paint on a piece of media paper and embossing it with the white. And I really liked how that turned out. There's the magazine picture that I cut to make shattered. So here we go. We've got these masterboards. They're ready. They have color on them. Next week, this is what I'm going to use. Modeling paste. It's called Light and Fluffy. I've tried modeling paste, texture paste. I made it myself with glue and cornstarch, and it was fine. It still sticks to this day, but I didn't like the texture of it. It was too gritty, and this truly is light and fluffy. But that's next week. This week, this is our completed cards. I added some fabric. I added this really cool thing called joint tape. See? And it is adhesive. The back of it peels away and it's sticky. It's really cool. I have been playing with this. It's slightly stiff, but not bad. I actually did some of the texture paste through it. That was cool. And it's easy to put ink on it. So you'll see that on the few of the words that are completed. And that is some, I'll think of the word in a second. That is a cutout, and that card is going in a journal that I've made, and that has some fabric and some seam binding and some of the PET tape. And there's the finished one. I did take that flower off and put a different one on, and that has the drat. I'm gonna have to stick in the name of that. What's it called? So here's a close-up of each one, and you can see the different layers and how they just sort of came together. Just kept on going, adding layers until I liked it, even with that yellow on there. Yeah, Cheesecloth. That's what it's called. There's cheesecloth on there. Sorry. Sometimes my brain doesn't find the words quickly enough. Do you ever have that problem? So this is the journal that card's going to go in. There's a video for that coming. And here's for next week, the light and fluffy modeling paste. See you then. Thanks for joining me. Take care. It's Lori at Positive Thanks Living. Happy to be together. Bye for now.